Hello everyone, my name is Brennan Marr, that noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today we're going to talk about Padme. Or Padme if you prefer. Padme Amidala, if I'm pronouncing it right, was elected Queen of the Naboo at the age of 14. We first see her in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, trying to defuse the situation with the Trade Federation. The Trade Federation was disgruntled at some taxes signed into law by the Republic and blockaded the planet Naboo with plans, secret plans to invade and conquer the planet. Supreme Chancellor Valorum, the leader of the Republic, sent the Jedi Knights Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to deal with the situation and try to resolve the conflict. Queen Amidala contacted the Trade Federation leaders, asking them about the situation with the ambassadors, the Jedi. The Trade Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray claimed that he knew nothing about ambassadors, which seemed very suspicious. Queen Amidala was contacting Senator Palpatine, the senator of Naboo, to try to get help. When the transmission was jammed, Queen Amidala, by the way, was her royal name, was very reluctant to use violence in that situation. The Naboo were a peaceful people. They had no army. Only a volunteer military force, used mostly as police and bodyguards. The Trade Federation invaded the planet, and their plan was to get Queen Amidala to sign a treaty that would make their occupation of the planet legal. She refused. The Trade Federation was under the control of Darth Sidious. He claimed that Queen Amidala was young and naive and that controlling her would be easy. They were sorely mistaken. When the Queen stubbornly refused to sign the treaty, she was escorted to a prison camp. On the way there, the Jedi Knights, having escaped from the Trade Federation, rescued the Queen from the droids escorting her to the camp. Qui-Gon told them that the negotiations never took place, as the Trade Federation was not interested in negotiating. Qui-Gon had a feeling that they were going to try to kill the Queen, even though the Queen's advisors thought that the Trade Federation wouldn't do that, as they needed her to make their blockade or invasion, or rather occupation, legal. It was decided then that the Queen would escape the planet. The Jedi were able to help the Queen, and they all escaped on her royal starship. Once they got past the planetary blockade, thanks to a little help from a little droid named R2-D2, they discovered the hyperdrive was leaking. It was Qui-Gon Jinn's intention that they traveled to the planet Tatooine. As Obi-Wan pointed out, it was close enough for them to land on. Captain Panaka, the Queen's protector, did not like the idea because it was controlled by the Hutts. The Hutts were gangsters, and if they discovered the Queen, all heck would break loose. The Queen received this information with Captain Panaka saying he did not agree with the Jedi, and Qui-Gon saying, our plan is to take us to Tatooine. We don't really know what the Queen's decision on that was, but it seems that she trusted the judgment of Qui-Gon Jinn. While on Tatooine, the Queen, disguised as one of the Queen's handmaidens, went with Qui-Gon and Jar Jar Binks to try to get a new hyperdrive. Here they met the junk trader Watto, and a slave owned by him by the name of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin and Padme immediately hit it off and established a connection. But they discovered that it would be very, very difficult to get a new hyperdrive, because Watto did not accept Republic credits. So they had to think of something. Anakin, on his way home, again met with Qui-Gon, Jar Jar, and Padme. And as the sandstorm was coming, offered to take them to his home. Which he did. Well, of course, they met Anakin's mother, Shmi, who seemed to establish a nice connection with Qui-Gon. At dinner, they were discussing what to do. Anakin had built a pod racer. He was the only human who could pod race. Anakin believed that if he won the race, the money would help them get the parts they need. It was Padme who said that Qui-Gon believed, well, let me back up. Qui-Gon believed that Anakin, doing the race, would be, he didn't seem to object. But Shmi objected because she was worried about Anakin's safety, and worried that Anakin was doing something that Watto didn't want him to. As Watto had basically grounded Anakin for smashing up their last pod. Padme then said, I'm sure Qui-Gon doesn't want to put your son in any danger. And there's got to be another way. To which Shmi responded, there is no other way. Anakin was meant to help you. And reluctantly agreed to allow her son to race. Of course, we know the rest. Anakin won the pod race. They got the parts they needed. And Anakin went with them to be trained as a Jedi. As Qui-Gon sensed that Anakin had strong force potential, and that Anakin might indeed be the chosen one of Jedi legend. They got to Coruscant, and Senator Palpatine basically convinced Queen Amidala to put forth a motion of no confidence against Chancellor Valorum, whose leadership was leading the Republic nowhere. Padme, of course, did this in the Senate chamber and strongly spoke out in defense of her people. The motion was put forward, and Chancellor Valorum was voted out of office, with Senator Palpatine being nominated to succeed him, along with 2 other senators. Even though Valorum was displaced, Amidala could no longer wait for the Republic to do something, and decided she would return to Naboo and deal with the crisis with the Trade Federation. This is probably one move that Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, did not expect her to do. But she did it indeed. and was able to convince Jar Jar Binks to help her recruit the Gungans to their cause. While on the planet, they met with the Gungans, who had fled to a sacred place because they were under threat of the Trade Federation. Here, Queen Amidala's double first began to negotiate with Bastel, when Padme then revealed the deception that she was indeed the queen. Which Anakin, Obi-Wan, much to Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon's chagrin. They were able to convince the Gungans by basically saying, look, you think we're a bunch of arrogant a-holes, but we're not. And Basnas and the Gungans agreed to join their cause. Of course, a big battle was fought. Queen Amidala planned a very successful attack and deception by drawing the droid army away to the grassy plains to fight the Gungans, and having the starfighters engage the droid control ship in orbit, while she and her troops invaded the palace. It all paid off, and everything succeeded. Unfortunately, with the casualty of Qui-Gon Jinn, who was killed by Darth Maul, Darth Sidious's apprentice. But Queen Amidala's gamble worked, and the planet was saved. And of course, there was a big celebration to mark the occasion. Queen Amidala led her people to a great victory. 10 years later, during the immense attack of the clones, Padme is now the senator of Naboo, still retaining the royal name Amidala. Going by Padme Amidala, she represented Naboo to the Galactic Republic and traveled to Coruscant to vote in some emergency bills to allow the Republic to create an army. As the increasing threat of the Separatists, as the threat of the Separatists grew, the Republic, which had no military force, realized that it would need more than the Jedi Knights to defend itself. Mace Windu, one of the leaders of the Jedi Council, reminded Chancellor Palpatine, who was indeed elected, that the Jedi were keepers of the peace and not soldiers. Now, as Padme arrived on Coruscant, an assassination attempt was made against her when her starship was destroyed and one of her doubles was killed. Padme had wisely disguised herself as a fighter pilot to avoid any direct attack on her. Very interesting that even though she wasn't queen anymore, she still needed doubles to deceive so that she could escape harm. Now, because of the situation and the threats on her life, it was Chancellor Palpatine who suggested, probably with ulterior motives, that Obi-Wan and Anakin defend her against any further assassination attempts. I think Palpatine was aware of Anakin's feelings for Padme. Over the 10 years since they'd seen each other, Anakin had become rather obsessed with Padme. And I'm sure Palpatine, it was his idea that, gee, maybe we should put them together. Because I think he knew what was going to happen. So, as Obi-Wan and Anakin are defending the Queen, and having no short amount of arguments over everything, the bounty hunter Zam Wesell, under the command of Jango Fett, attempted to kill Senator Amidala. Anakin and Obi-Wan chased Zam Wesell through the streets of Coruscant, if Coruscant can indeed be said to have streets, in a big, basically, car chase. It ended with the death of Zam Wessel when Jango Fett silenced her by killing her with a poison dart before Zam could reveal anything to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Or Obi-Wan and Anakin, I should say. It was then decided that Anakin would escort Senator Amidala back to Naboo where she'd be safe, while Obi-Wan would try to investigate the poison dart that had killed Zam Wessel to figure out what in the world was going on. Or what in the galaxy was going on, I should say. Of course, we know the rest. Obi-Wan went off and discovered the clone army and all kinds of craziness. Anakin and Padme went to Naboo, where their proximity to each other allowed their feelings to rise to the surface. Padme at first was not interested in pursuing a romantic relationship, given her career. Anakin, of course, was not really supposed to do that, and some really bad romantic dialogue follows. That Padme pretty much ends up falling for Anakin. Obi-Wan travels to the planet Geonosis where he is captured. Around that time, Anakin and Padme journey to Tatooine. Anakin is having nightmares about his mother, about what's bad things that could happen to her. And Anakin and Padme travel there to discover that she had been kidnapped by Tusken Raiders, or Sand People. Anakin travels to find her, and she dies in his arms. And Anakin goes insane, basically, and goes on a murderous rampage and kills the Tuskens. He brings his mother's body home, where he buries her, promising that he'll never let anything bad happen to his family or friends again. And we pretty much know where that's going. He confesses what he did to Padme, who doesn't seem to mind that he just killed a bunch of people. Whatever. Then they learn that Obi-Wan has been captured. They travel to Geonosis. They are all captured by the Geonosians and sentenced to death in a gladiatorial arena. Padme is actually the one who escapes first from their chains and demonstrates some real gumption, I guess. Then the Jedi arrive to save the trio. And the Clone War begins as the clone troopers, now under the control of the Republic, arrive and the first battle of the Clone Wars begins. We all know sort of the silliness that happens after that. Padme rolling down the hill but not getting any sand on her outfit. Whatever. And after the battle is won, even though Count Dooku escapes, Anakin and Padme are married in a secret ceremony on Naboo. 3 years later, Padme reveals to Anakin. Oh wait, did I say that one? Anakin and Padme. I hope I didn't accidentally say Anakin and Obi-Wan. That would have been a little weird. We're married on Naboo, of course. 3 years later, Padme tells Anakin she's pregnant. There's some initial concern about how they're going to handle that, given both of their professional lives. But Anakin's not too worried about it. Anakin has some nightmares about Padme dying in childbirth, though. Nightmares which makes me wonder if Palpatine had planted them there. That Palpatine shares the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise and Anakin, which seems to pique his interest in being able to save Padme using the dark side of the Force. Palpatine seems to know that Anakin and Padme are married. Whether Anakin told him or not, I'm not entirely sure. Anakin then chooses to side with Palpatine and falls into the embrace of the dark side and becomes Darth Vader. He then leads the clone troops to slaughter the Jedi in the Jedi Temple. Padme has a hard time accepting that her husband would have done this, but realizes that it's true indeed. Anakin has fallen to the dark side. After Anakin murders the Jedi, he is sent by the newly crowned Emperor. Not Emperor Palpatine, sends Darth Vader, I should say, to slaughter the separatist leaders on Mustafar. Padme travels to Mustafar and tries to convince Anakin to change. She's still hesitant to believe that he's a murderer. And Anakin tries to convince her, saying, come with me, we can rule the galaxy. Padme realizes this is not something that she can accept, and not something that she can do. She cannot choose to side with Anakin after what he's become. In her own words, he's gone down a path that she can't follow. Now, Obi-Wan had stowed away on Padme's starship without Padme knowing it. When Obi-Wan arrives there to face Anakin, Anakin believes that Padme has betrayed him. He then force chokes Padme and she faints. This leads to Obi-Wan and Anakin's fierce duel on Mustafar, in which Anakin, or Darth Vader, loses most of his limbs and lights on fire because of the heat. Obi-Wan leaves him, takes Padme in her starship, and they travel to the asteroid field of Polis Massa, where they meet with Senator Organa. Padme gives birth to twins, but loses the will to live. She names them Luke and Leia, and dies, still believing that there's hope for Anakin. And that is the end of Padme. She dies very sadly, having sort of lost the will to live after her husband's turned to the dark side. But despite this sadness, she leaves a great legacy. Now, one last detail is, this is a minor little detail. Palpatine lies to Anakin and basically says that she died at that moment when he strangled her. And Anakin assumes that that means their child. He didn't realize it was twins. At least I don't think so. That their children probably died too. In fact, in order to maintain the illusion, when Padme is laid to rest on Naboo, it looks as though she's still pregnant, to basically hide the truth. As Obi-Wan says later, that the truth about Luke and Leia had to be hidden from their father to keep them safe, because the Emperor knew they'd be a threat. Kind of a sad end for Padme, but she leaves a great legacy behind. She is one of the matriarchs of the Skywalker family. And her children seem inherited in many ways, especially her daughter. Leia seemed to inherit a lot of her mother's personality and drive as a politician. Now, so that's really the story of Padme. Now let's talk about the performance. Okay. I have to confess, Padme is my least favorite Star Wars character. And unfortunately, that is because of the performance given by Natalie Portman. Now, to be fair, I don't believe that you can blame any of the actors in the Star Wars prequels for bad performances. I think that rests on the shoulders of the director. George Lucas, what I would call an actor's director. He is not really focused on getting performances out of the actors in terms of the way that actors directors would. Lucas is more concerned with the big picture. Now, unfortunately, that means, from what we've heard, that he doesn't really direct the actors. So, I think that given the nature of the making of the Star Wars prequels, that there were a lot of sterile environments and things like that, I think it's easy to see why the performance doesn't work. I don't think. Now, I think that it is certainly, you can't complain about the costumes and the makeup and all that stuff with Padme, but there's the performance behind that. I think that the situation is that, particularly in episode 1, I think that what George Lucas was going for was the idea that she is a formal leader, very formal, very passionless, very regal, and I understand what he was going for. But unfortunately to me, it's as painful as listening to nails on a chalkboard. That dry, dull monotone, especially when she's Queen Amidala, is painful to listen to, I think. Now, if you listen to, like, the trailers, she doesn't sound like that. She sounds more like the normal Natalie Portman high-pitched voice. So I'm assuming that in ADR, they either asked her to do deeper with her voice, or they modified it digitally, or it's dubbed over by somebody else. But regardless, it's painfully monotone. And unfortunately, it is one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Now, when she's just Padme in episode 1, she's okay. But that fake British accent doesn't help either. Anyhow, going on with, like, episode 2, and even episode 3, I think it's a combination of really bad dialogue and a lack of good direction. So, unfortunately, I think she gives the worst performance of anybody in Star Wars. Yes, I said it. I even prefer Jar Jar Binks. We'll get to him next week. So, unfortunately, it's the worst performance, and therefore, she is my least favorite character, in a combination with performance and characterization. I feel that she's kind of does some stuff that just doesn't work. The romance with her and Anakin just does not work for me at all. So, unfortunately, not one of my favorites. Now, we all know that Natalie Portman is a magnificent actress. Well, like all actors, I think it's about the circumstances. But also, she was very young, especially when Episode 1 came out. When they made Episode 1, she was very, very young. So, no, I do not begrudge her performance, or should I say, I do not blame Natalie Portman. And this has nothing to do with my feelings about Natalie Portman. I just think that the performance is not good. Now, that being said, I'm very interested to see if there's any reference to her in future Star Wars content, including The Rise of Skywalker. Shmi Skywalker is the matriarch of the whole saga. But Padme plays a very, very important role, I think, in just the overall Skywalker family. And I'd be very interested to see if there's more content about her, whether it's in books or comics, which there certainly have been. And Rise of Skywalker, I wonder if she'll get a mention. Now, I do also have to admit that the music, Across the Stars, which is the romantic theme of Star Wars Episode 2, is one of my, if not my most favorite Star Wars music. John Williams has created a magnificent piece. It's called Across the Stars. And if you haven't paid much attention to it, check it out. So those are my thoughts on Padme Amidala. I wish that I could be more positive, but I have to be honest. Nonetheless, if I met Natalie Portman, I would want to thank her very much for what she brought to Star Wars. So my name is Brendan Mark. That noise here is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.